Monastery landing pad. Teth. Ahsoka backed away from the door, her eyes trained on the two hot spots that had appeared there. Master Skywalker had just been about to go back for Rex and his surviving troopers when two droidekas had appeared, forcing them to stand their ground. As R2-D2 had shut the door, a shaven-headed woman had appeared, brandishing a pair of curved, red lightsabers. Lightsabers that were now slowly cutting a hole through the door, toward them.
I think,
Sky Guy said, stepping back along with her,
that now's a good time for a retreat.
Retreat?
Ahsoka quoted.
That's a new word for you.
He rolled his eyes, then darted over to the edge of the platform and peered over the edge.
There's a lot of jungle to hide in.
There's a lot of things in the jungle.
Ahsoka pointed out, looking over the edge with him.
Oh, and spider droids.
Several were climbing their way up the cliff face now, their legs gripping the rocks and making slow but steady progress. Some paused and fired laser rounds into the landing platform, causing it to shake slightly. Great. First they had to fight a vulture droid on this stupid platform, and now it was a bunch of spider droids and a Sith.
Well,
Her master grimaced.
the choice is to have the platform shot out from under us, or stand here and wait for Ventress. Or go over the side and meet the spider droids.
Ahsoka's eyes darted around, sizing up their options. They were all bad. They couldn't wait for the platform to crumble, they'd die. Going over and tangling with the spider droids wasn't ideal, as descending a vine and deflecting blaster fire from below would be perilously tricky. Waiting for the door to come down meant a lightsaber duel, which was no good with little Rada to protect.
Can I answer none of the above, Master?
Her attempt at humor fell a bit flat. From his position in the backpack strapped to Sky Guy, Rada began to whine.
Carry on complaining, my smelly friend.
Rada suddenly changed noises, emitting a coo of what Ahsoka could only describe as surprise. He lifted one tiny arm and pointed behind Sky Guy.
Well, a change is as good as a rest.
Ahsoka turned and scanned the horizon, searching for something.
What's he pointing at?
He's pointing?
Over there.
Ahsoka narrowed her eyes, thankful for her predator's long-range vision.
How did we miss it? I never spotted that before. Over there. Another plateau. And look what's on it.
What? I can't see.
Master Skywalker said, retrieving his electro-binoculars. Ahsoka peered past the gigantic insects that were suddenly being stirred up by the commotion of the dwarf spider droids below them. In the distance, on the other plateau, she could make out the shape of a large ship resting on a landing platform much like the one they were currently standing on.
Look at the thing that's glittering.
She prompted.
Hey, you're right.
Master Skywalker said.
It's a ship. But we're here, and it's there. I make that 2 clicks away. 3.
Ahsoka deflated once more, stepping away from the edge of the platform. He was right, of course. None of them, save R2, could fly. There was no way for them to get to the ship, not without going over the edge with the droids and hiking 3 clicks through the jungle. It still wasn't a solution to their immediate problem.
Yeah,
She said.
I know. It was just a thought.
R2-D2 let out a warning whistle. Ahsoka looked up and her master turned back toward the door. The lightsaber-wielding woman, Ventress, Sky Guy had named her, was nearly finished cutting through the door. Just as she realized that, the platform shook again as another barrage from the spider droids connected with the permacrete.
R2,
Sky Guy suddenly shouted.
can you generate an audio signal that matches Alardi's drive profile?
What? The little droid beeped in the affirmative and let out a sound that was a direct match to a lat/I. Ahsoka looked at Skywalker.
Master, just tell me.
We're calling in one of those insects,
He explained, gesturing to the huge bugs circling below them.
and we're going to ride it out of here.
Ahsoka sucked in a breath, then let it out.
Okay,
She sighed.
I've done a lot of crazier things today. Why the sound effects?
The insects think it's an invitation to go on a date.
Master Skywalker explained.
They were all over the Lardy, remember?
Oh, she remembered. She remembered the vulture droid swooping in and the gunship exploding in a ball of fire before her eyes. The crew was below them somewhere, dead.
Can you steer?
The platform shook again.
Provided we can hang on, of course.
Sky Guy shrugged.
Force pull here, force push there, as long as we take off. That's my priority.
Okay then, we're gonna ride out of here on some unsuspecting, horny bug. I guess this is our plan.
Ahsoka glanced back toward the doorway. Ventress was 3/4 of the way through the door. If that insect didn't show up looking for love soon, things were going to go downhill really fast. As luck would have it, they didn't have to wait very long. One of the insects below them began to fly up toward them, jerking this way and that, making strange keening sounds that, actually, kind of did sound like a lardy. If she wasn't so nervous, Ahsoka would have laughed. Seeing his opportunity, Sky Guy took a step back, prepared himself, then leapt off the platform and onto the bug's back, Rada screaming all the way.
I hope I don't have to learn that.
Ahsoka muttered. Crash! As R2 rolled over to her side, she whipped around, drawing her lightsaber and igniting it. A huge, almost perfectly circular hole had been cut through the landing pad's door. Stepping out of it was the tall, shaven-headed woman she'd caught a glimpse of moments earlier, Ventress. In either hand, she held a curved, red lightsaber. Intent to kill was written all over her face. She smirked in a superior manner.
So, Padawan, he's abandoned you.
Ventress snapped her 2 lightsabers together to form a single, double-ended blade.
It's a Jedi habit.
She reached out with the Force and, before Ahsoka could do anything, sent poor R2-D2 falling at the feet of the battle droids that guarded the door behind her. Scowling, Ahsoka gripped her own lightsaber two-handed and began prowling in a wide circle around the woman, if she could be called a woman.
Where are you, Skywalker?
Called Ventress, glancing around. Ahsoka felt momentarily offended.
You're fighting me.
She spat. She only needed to hold out for a few seconds before Master Skywalker got control over his bug and came back for her. She hoped.
So I am.
Ventress said.
Nothing personal.
Ahsoka raised her lightsaber and charged. Just before they met, she dropped to her knees and skidded forward, dropping under Ventress's guard and swinging her blade at her legs. The assassin jumped backward and twirled her lightsaber like a staff, batting Ahsoka's saber away. DeGruta was on her feet in an instant, barely able to block a second blow that would have cleaved off her head. She darted from left to right, doing her best to keep Ventress guessing as to where she'd strike next. She struck and parried, green and red blades meeting for a fraction of a second before disengaging and holding back, waiting for the next blow. Maybe she could wear Ventress down with a prolonged fight, lull her into a false sense of security. Then, she'd switch things around and catch her off guard, giving Ahsoka the ability to deliver the killing blow. An old Togrutan strategy. But apparently, Ventress knew that. The assassin stood completely still, lightsaber held out away from her body. She waited. This had to be a trap. Still. Ahsoka approached cautiously, wondering when it was going to be sprung. She got within striking distance and still nothing happened. What was going on?
Criffit.
Ahsoka gripped her saber and swung. Ventress sprang into action, twirling her lightsaber in an impossible-to-follow figure-8 movement, catching Ahsoka's blade in 4 different strikes. The surprising move and the force behind each blow caught Ahsoka unawares, and her blade flew from her grip, falling to the permacrete several meters away.
Uh-oh.
Was all Ahsoka had time to think before Ventress stretched out a hand and force-pushed her to the ground. The impact was so jarring that it almost knocked all the breath from her lungs. She immediately made to get up again, but found she couldn't move. Ventress had one hand outstretched and was keeping her there with the force. The woman put one boot on Ahsoka's chest and pressed down, hard.
Where's Skywalker?
She demanded. Ahsoka squirmed, but to no avail.
You'll find out the hard way.
She spat. Hopefully.
Very well.
Ventress scowled. She looked up and spoke to the sky.
I can start lopping off body parts, Skywalker. Your call.
Nothing. Ventress shifted her lightsaber so that the blade was mere millimeters away from Ahsoka's throat.
Let's trade. Special 2-for-1 offer. A Padawan and a droid for 1 hotlet. Can't say fairer than that.
Ahsoka saw the bug appear from over the side of the landing platform, behind Ventress.
There he is.
Sky Guy was riding atop the insect, Rada still safely strapped to his back. Wrestling with his mount for half a second, he sent the bug flying forward directly into Ventress's back. She dropped forward, her lightsaber plunging into the permacrete right next to Ahsoka's neck, nearly up to its hilt. Knowing that now was her opportunity, Ahsoka rolled clear just as Ventress did the same. She sprang to her feet, reached out, and called her lightsaber back to her hand. Now wasn't the time to fight, however. Now was the time to retreat. Back by the door, the 2 battle droids that were standing over R2-D2 took aim.
Hold your fire!
Ventress screamed, holding one hand out.
Hit him and you kill the hut!
You catch on quick.
Sky Guy quipped.
I'd like my Padawan back, please.
Ahsoka grinned. Ventress retreated towards the door, lightsaber still clutched in her hands, evidently looking for a way to retaliate. Luckily, there was none. Master Skywalker directed the bug as best he could, pushing it this way and that, trying to get it close enough for Ahsoka to grab onto his outstretched hand. It was easier said than done. The bug was bucking and swerving this way and that, clearly not happy with being deprived of its love session and suddenly subjected to being an unwilling mount for a Jedi Knight. Its long tail thrashed and its mandibles snapped angrily, causing Ahsoka to keep her distance to avoid being bludgeoned by her escape vehicle. The platform beneath Ahsoka's boots shook one final time as a barrage of laser fire connected with it. Her world suddenly tilted as the slab of permacrete hung at the air at a 45-degree angle, sure to fall at any second.
Jump!
Sky Guy shouted, holding out his hand one last time.
Now or never.
Ahsoka leapt into the air, stretching out both her arms and calling upon the Force to lift her higher. She just made it. She landed directly in front of her master, half hanging on the insect's head and neck as her legs scrambled against empty air, just as they had during her near fall off the ATTE not so many hours ago. Quickly, Master Skywalker grabbed a hold of her and dragged her upright, situating her just ahead of him. Then, he steered them away from the platform and they flew off, R2-D2 trailing them with his arm-mounted boosters. Away from Ventress, away from the droids, away from Rex. Rex wielded his 2 appropriated DC-15 carbines with as much deadly accuracy as he could, given that all he really needed to do was point and shoot. There were just that many droids coming at them. They'd been pinned down before, but reinforcements had showed up out of nowhere after Zir, the company's combat engineer, had sent an SBD he'd reprogrammed and packed with explosives back behind enemy lines and detonated it, blowing away more tinnies than they'd hoped. Now, it seemed the droids were taking them a bit more seriously, and were determined to bury them under a mountain of their own metal bodies. They created something of a makeshift barrier around the ATTE they were covering under, using the carcasses of dead droids, rubble, and anything else they could get their hands on. Korik and Del had abandoned the heavy repeating blaster turret they'd forcefully taken off the droids in favor of using smaller arms and hiding behind better cover. Nax was leveraging a DC-15 rifle, firing non-stop, and muttering to himself intermittently as though he were the announcer for a bolo ball match.
There he goes again. Nax makes a brilliant play, taking out 2 droids with a single blaster bolt. I don't think we've ever seen anything like that before, do you?
Zir had crawled into the ATTE's interior and was working on something. Addy clapped Rex on the shoulder.
Get down, sir,
he said, turning back to the launcher he'd found.
Mortar surprise incoming.
Rex didn't need to be told twice. He ducked down, taking the opportunity to reload both his Deces.
Cover, fire!
Thump.
Cover, fire!
Thump.
Cover, fire!
Thump. It didn't do more than slow the droids, but it provided a nice few seconds of relief as the blaster fire around them became less oppressive. Zir emerged from the belly of the ATTE. He was carrying a flamethrower. Where that had come from, Rex would never know.
New and improved,
he said.
Removes those difficult, ground-in tinnies that other flamethrowers can't touch.
Rex looked around. The droids were closing in on them. It'd only be a few more minutes before they were close enough for Zier's surprise flamethrower to come in handy.
Just end it.
Korik muttered.
Gotta stop sometime.
Rex gestured at Zier to put the flamethrower down and get back to firing.
Hang on to that. Droid flambe for dessert.
He glanced over.
Korik, you okay? Always am, sir. Good man.
He knew that, at this point, the prolonged battle waiting for the inevitable was taking a toll on all of them. They'd missed their opportunity for escape after Zier's perfect diversion with the explosive SBD. Now, it was only a matter of time before the end came. It was unfortunate that he was going to go this soon into the war. There was plenty he hadn't done in life yet. He'd never had spiced creams, a dessert that, for some reason, everyone craved. Must have been a holdover from Django. He'd never seen a live bolo ball match. He'd never been promoted, not that he was complaining. He rather liked his position with Skywalker, not that it mattered much now. He'd never seen a holovid in the theaters. He'd never been drunk, not that he was really looking for that, but he figured it was something everyone should experience at least once. He'd never kissed a girl. There were plenty of things he'd never done in his 10 years of life. Then again, there were plenty of things he had done that most other 10-year-olds would never dream of. But most kids that age didn't know how to fire a blaster, or cope with the deaths of all their close friends, so there was that. Then his comm went off.
February 1st, 2012 inbound. Air group. Time on target, 1407.
The blaster fire around them stopped suddenly. Rex waved to all his men to get down.
Kenobi's here.
He hissed, a grin splitting his face.
Listen for the Lotties.
Republic cannon fodder.
Called the voice of a droid.
Surrender. You can't carry on.
Addie snorted.
That's rich.
Rex peered out from behind one of the walker's legs. A droid commander had disengaged from the rest of the set forces and stood out in the open, addressing them. As the leader of their little squad, Rex figured he'd better take care of this. He slipped out from behind the ATTE, waving back Korik and Del, who tried to stop him. He must have been quite a sight. Armor scratched, dented, and dirty, cracked or broken ribs, hand that was practically numb after punching that droid earlier, but he still stood as tall as he could manage.
Who are you calling cannon fodder, droid?
Surrender immediately.
Maybe Addie was right, and the droids really did want them alive as bait for Skywalker. It was about to not matter. Rex kicked up his external audio pickup and smirked. He could just hear a symphony of lovely, familiar noises.
I wish you'd asked earlier, because then...
The droids behind the commander all exploded as a missile from an incoming lat/I pounded into their position.
You wouldn't have been outnumbered.
Rex slipped back into the cover of their ATTE as more gunships appeared overhead, and the boys of the 212th Attack Battalion rappelled down into the courtyard, engaging the droids that had yet to realize they were facing a much larger and more prepared enemy force now.
About criffing time.
Max said.
No Skywalker?
Not yet. And then General Kenobi appeared from thin air, landing from somewhere above, right next to Rex, who was busy reloading his small arsenal of weapons.
Good timing, sir.
Rex was hard to ruffle.
Obviously not good enough, Captain.
Kenobi said, looking around at what remained of the 501st's Torrent Company.
Just these men left? Sir.
Was all Rex could muster.
I'm sorry. So where's Skywalker?
Rex was asking himself that same question.
Last known position, somewhere in the monastery, sir. But that was some hours ago. We've had no further contact. I'll go look for him. Watch out for a woman with my taste in hairstyles and a double-ended red lightsaber.
Rex warned.
Ventress. Smack her on for me, will you, sir?
Rex asked.
She gave me a few fractures.
Kenobi smiled.
Count on it.
And he was gone, leaping out of their little shelter and bounding off towards the monastery, lightsaber blazing, cutting down droids as he went. Rex envied his energy. He himself was running on empty. Rex's wristcom beeped.
Captain Rex, this is General Skywalker. Speak of the devil.
Del remarked. Instantly relieved, Rex clicked the receiver and held it up.
Go ahead, sir. Apologies for vanishing. Been a little busy.
No doubt that big rumbling and the smoke he'd seen coming from the opposite side of the monastery some hours ago had indeed been him.
Understandable. Calm working now, sir? Yes.
Skywalker sounded guilty.
We've got a problem, Rex. The Hutt kid is getting sicker. I've commandeered a ship, and I'm going to transfer the kid to Admiral Yularen's vessel. We're not going to be able to get to you yet. I'm sorry. Don't worry about us, General.
Rex assured him.
We'll be alright. The mission always comes first, sir.
There was no response. Telling.
You'd have to wait in line anyway. Cody's lads have taken all the best seats. We can't move for orange stripy armor. Hurts the eyes. So you don't need us then. We're fine, sir.
Rex said. It felt strange to be reassuring his commanding officer, but he did it nonetheless.
Good luck with the Hutt. I'll let General Kenobi know you're okay, because he's just gone looking for you in the monastery. I didn't mean to waste his time. Oh, I don't think he'll mind, sir. He'll probably take the opportunity to catch up on old times with Ventress.
Skywalker laughed a humorless laugh. Rex closed the link.
Well, that's a relief,
Cork said, sighing.
Well, there's a different ending to your holovid, Sarge.
Addie said.
We all lived happily ever after. No,
said Dell.
Most of us didn't.
Though Rex's adrenaline was ebbing and he was shaking worse than a Kowakian monkey lizard on spice, he still set down his carbines and picked up a rifle, cocking it.
In that case,
he said,
let's commemorate them the 501st way, by wiping out every last tinny on this rock.